Today we'll be doing a guided meditation and then a transmission to support you in sinking into an experience of who you really are. And I'll also be responding to your questions. For those of you who don't know, my name is Ken Stone, and welcome to this week's virtual community circle. We're live on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. I think we're live in other places too, and with the great possibility that this transmission and session will also be shared out over a podcast link here in the days or weeks to come. So grateful for all of you who could tune in and participate live, and welcome to everyone who's tuning into the replay as well. For those of you who are new to this channel, I invite you to like, subscribe, click the bell to be notified, and so grateful you're engaged. Of course, please do comment. As you may know, I have no way of knowing who's on the line until you start commenting, and that's also a great way for you to share your questions as we proceed. Before we do anything else, let's gather in our big, beautiful circle for this virtual community session for the 22nd of April 2020. It's Earth Day today, and a great opportunity for us to sink in and resonate and experience who we really are underneath everything else, an undistorted extension and expression of the divine. Finding a place is comfortable for you. As always, please don't operate a motor vehicle or heavy equipment of any sort during this or any time we're together. With your eyes closed, breathing in and out through the nostrils, palms to the sky if all that's comfortable for you. I just invite you to drop in to a deeper experience of the breath in your body, and then ultimately to the divine within. As you find that place that resonates most for you in this beautiful worldwide circle, just invite you to take a deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, all the way out to the count of 8, letting go of everything that has come before in this day, including all of those thoughts that are dominating in your mind, all the way out to the count of 8. And another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since you were born, all the way out to the count of 8. Your thoughts and the feelings, the emotions, and all the things that are held in your heart, all the way out to the count of 8. For as you let go, you open more fully to the experience of divine presence that is already within you. And another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since the inception of your soul, all the way out to the count of 8. Your thinking, your feeling, and your being, those ways that have dominated these various expressions of you, just release them all with this breath, out to the count of 8. And notice that cue of breath in front of your face. Be with it in your mind's eye or your imagination at whatever level it's coming up for you. Notice as you draw the breath in through your nostrils, there's no condition, no criteria, no questions. What kind of thoughts have you been having today? Breath doesn't care. What are your political beliefs? Where do you stand on this issue? What's your gender identity, your sexual identity, your ethnicity of origin, your religious and spiritual beliefs? Your breath does not care. The breath is coming in to support and serve you fully. And notice still with your eyes closed, in that cue of breath, a color beginning to infuse itself. Perhaps it's static or dynamic. And if you're assigning a color, perhaps pick one not normally present in your body, except possibly in your eyes. And with the next breath, be with the perspective of the breath from the perspective of the color as it flows in through the nostrils, up towards the crown, and then down into the lungs. And sit in the lungs as you continue to breathe, the color illuminating the pathway that the breath takes as it comes into your body, the lining of the lungs, the bloodstream, and eventually the cells throughout your entire body. A simple conclusion can be drawn here, and just sit and be with the resonance as it comes in, intellectually, physically, intuitively, and otherwise. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. Just notice. Intellectually, sure. Oxygen, lungs, bloodstream. Perhaps you see that color beginning to spread throughout your body. Perhaps you feel it, know it, sense it. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. And notice if we begin shifting our perspective to the breath of the planet serving your cue of breath, and also your neighbors and your neighbor's neighbor, and so on and so forth. And with each breath, you are connected directly to each of these people. Notice the breath of the planet isn't confined to your community or your region or your continent. The breath of the planet serves everyone on the planet, no matter who they are or what they believe or what they've done. In the same way, with each breath that you take, you are connected to every single person directly by your breath. They sustain their individual identity, as do you. Just the breath, a connection, a reflection of that innate connection that we all share at a deeper level. but leave it at the breath for now. Notice the breath of the planet isn't just serving the people of the planet, it's serving everything. And so we can say with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything above, upon, and within the planet. Indeed, you may even begin to have a sensation of breathing by and for and of the planet itself. And eventually, the breath of the planet expands out to touch the edge of space, and that in turn connects to every other part of the cosmos. And so the breath of the planet becomes the breath of the cosmos. And with each breath, you are connected directly to everyone and everything throughout all of creation, including that energy that underwrites everything else. The divine, a light perhaps at a great distance initially, drawing closer with each breath that you draw in, until eventually it is close enough that you can perceive by whatever method, in whatever way, those twin frequencies that together comprise this divine light. The frequency of the divine itself and the frequency of perfect health intertwine such that there is no separating one from the other. Indeed, it's not just perfect health as we conceive of it as human beings, perfect mental or physical or emotional or spiritual health. It's every iteration and expression of perfect health, known and unknown. Continuing to breathe in and out with the nostrils, eventually that light connects in at your nostrils and then instantaneously throughout every aspect of your being, known and unknown. Each of the smallest aspects of you connected in by each of the smallest aspects of that light, the invitation extended on behalf of the light. Come return to your natural state of resonance and alignment. And with that, perhaps you can even feel throughout your being those artifacts of dissonance beginning to fall away as the resonance spreads throughout your entire being. The artifacts of dissonance appearing to gather at that universal drain. For whatever remains in separation, I invite you to remove the plug there. I'll do the same. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. The river is flowing. Indeed, with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything throughout the entirety of the cosmos, including the divine, just as if you were to sit near a river in your location or a stream, that river is flowing. As that light draws closer, the twin frequencies connecting into each of the smallest aspects of you, the river is flowing. Hold an intention that the river flow downhill, and indeed the river flows downhill. Yet drop your intention entirely, empty your mind, and witness the river. Still, the river is flowing. Turn your back on the river, and still the river is flowing. Walk away, forget of its existence. Still, the river is flowing. So too with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything, the divine, the light, the twin frequencies, connecting into each of the smallest aspects of you on every level, the invitation to return to your natural state of resonance and alignment. The artifacts appear away and exit out through that universal drain. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. The river is flowing. Let's begin. My mouth is already starting to buzz, so I'm going to open my eyes and check in and see if there are any. Oh, we're just sitting. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Let's sit. That's beautiful. If there are questions that are coming up to ask, I invite you to submit those in the comments section wherever you're watching this, whether you're watching live or the replay. If you're watching live, I can interact with you and respond to any questions during our time together in this virtual community session. This virtual community circle is probably a better way of saying it. All of us just gathering to sink in and remember and experience who we really are. Emphasis on the experience. The remembering comes later. I wonder if I tried to live stream to LinkedIn, and apparently I'm not yet approved. So I got an error message at the beginning of the session today. I hope that isn't getting in the way of me seeing comments. I'll go check in on the individual streams here in just a moment. Uh, uh, I knew I wasn't approved yet by LinkedIn. I want to be approved, but they haven't approved me yet. And I thought, oh, it's letting me connect. Maybe it'll work. Oh, you never know till you try. Here we go. Let's do a test. Awesome. It's Christine on YouTube checking in. It's working, Christine. Thanks for doing the test. I appreciate it. So happy to be here with you. Peace to all. Well said, Christine. I'm glad you're here. We know YouTube comments are working. There are lots of different things that happen when we're sitting in transmission together, but probably all of them are entirely unique to each of us in the circle. And so it's really important just to deeply honor what is coming up for you, what is showing up in your experience, in your awareness, in your body, whatever sensations are showing up. A couple of requests. One of the ways that this circle can be such a powerful container for doing not only deep spiritual work, but also having a deep experience of the divine within, is that we all in this circle, and I'm asking you to also agree to this and participate in this way, we all stay in our own space. We stay in our own energy. We're not trying to send energy to each other or to people who aren't sitting here in the circle or to anyone else out in the world. Just be within yourself. It's really the most profound opportunity that we all have as human beings, is to deeply experience that innate connection with the divine by whatever name within ourselves, you for you, me for me, and so on. And it's a little bit different than the normal or the conventional, if I could refer to it that way, paradigm for how we might hold people in our awareness or send energy or love or those types of things. What you'll discover is as you sit in this space, as you sink in each week, you're going to come to a deeper and deeper experience of yourself and of the divine, and an extraordinary intimacy will open up in that relationship within you. And over time, that relationship will begin to expand, but it will expand all within you. And there are all sorts of things that happen as a result, as a natural byproduct of that expanding interior experience. And we can talk about those things. You may have questions about that or reflections you'd like to share. In past weeks, comments have worked on Facebook. I decided this time to hook up my personal Facebook stream to this live stream. Hi, Mom, if you're there, because there are lots of people who are connected to me personally who may not know of my work. And I thought, well, I'm just going to hook the live stream up there too. But I wonder if that's getting in the way of comments. Oh, but here Rebecca French says Facebook comments are working. Hallelujah. Oh, glad I caught you live. I'm glad you're here too, Rebecca. Beautiful. And Ray checking in. Glad to be here and receive, brother. Glad you are here, brother. And Gary is here. Great to be here with you, brother. Love you, man. Thanks very much. Thanks for being here, Gary. Great to be with you. Christine is checking in again. I'm learning to develop my receiving muscles. Thanks, Ray, for reminding me to be here and receive. Beautiful. And Sherry checking in on YouTube. Deep in. Beautiful. Beautiful. That's exactly right. Thank you all for saying hi. And anyone else who would like to check in. We know YouTube comments are working. We know Facebook comments somewhere. I'm guessing on my professional page. I don't know. Diane is checking in. Glad to be in the circle. I'm glad you're here too, Diane. On YouTube, I've never live streamed on Twitter before. So I set up a Periscope account. I don't know if it's working or not. Let's pretend it is. I don't know. The software I'm using claims that I can see comments from Twitter. So if anyone's on Twitter and you'd like to say hi, I'll put my various pages up here as links in the comments, and I'll see if they send out. The first link I want to share is a way for everyone to, if you're not currently receiving email from me, you can join my email list following that link, kendamstone.com/newsletter. And I can barely do what I'm doing, so I'm not going to even try to check in on Facebook directly. But here is and Eve, so happy you're here. Glad you're here, Eve. Thanks for checking in. Here is the my Facebook professional page, and my YouTube channel. Let's see if I can post these things. And then the last thing I'm going to post for now is my Twitter feed. My handle on Twitter is @energy_worker. Twitter gives, I am on StreamYard, Diane. Thanks for asking about that. Yeah, I think they're all here. I think all the comments are here. There's always that when I've expanded out. There's my Twitter handle for those of you who are on Twitter and would like to follow. So the opportunity here is really to connect with one another, to share some time if there are reflections or questions that are coming up. And then when we've gone through all the questions or comments that are coming up, to sink in even deeper. Diane is saying, if I can ever be of help, let me know. Thank you very much, Diane. I'm grateful for that. Diane, you may know John Paduchek, who is a good friend of mine, helped me get on live streaming on StreamYard and so on. And John's approach to live video is, hey, if it doesn't work, we'll figure it out, which was a little overwhelming to me initially. I don't know how many I've done now, 4 or 5. I'm settling in a little bit more. The best part of this for me is just to sink in with everyone in the community here and resonate. I talked about this in my email earlier today. The subject was God is here. I love that subject line because that subject line would have stirred me up years ago. I didn't like saying the name God. It bothered me. It had an association with the religious tradition I was raised in when I was young, which was Catholicism. And I had lots of negative associations with the name God. And then I did all this inner work. And over the years, God and the divine. And I thought, well, I wonder if I should just say the divine is here. And I thought, no, right? Today, the way it's resonating for me, God is here. That's how it feels. Diana saying this is a wonderful tool. It is. It's a great way. And John Chandler checking in. Hi, John. Great to be with you. Glad you're here. Honored to be sitting with you, of course, as always. Honored to be sitting with you, John, and everyone who's here, whether you're saying hi or not. They sort of drop into a deeper level and then some interactions. Maybe there are questions, maybe not. Last week, I've been thinking about this question that came in. Jerry asked the question about a teacher who had called in their students, their clients, and Jerry wanted to know what stage of consciousness. And at the time, we went through a process of looking at the 4 principal developmental stages of consciousness that we experience. Most of us fall into victim consciousness sometime in our early youth. Could be, 4 or 5, maybe as late as 9 or 10, or maybe even 11 or 12. And I suppose some people even later. At some point, though, we all fall into victim consciousness. Fall, maybe an overly dramatic way of saying it, but for many people, I think it feels that way. Fall into become identified with the disempowered separate self, and then, of course, the move into controlling or manifestor consciousness and identification with the empowered separate self, and then moving into conduit consciousness, and then, of course, union consciousness. And the statement that I made last week was, well, it seems like that's probably in controlling consciousness, but in the meantime, I've thought of lots of examples of where it isn't. So if anyone wants to pick that up, or Jerry, if you're here, I would love to. I would love to hear about it. Ray is saying, I was hung up on the God word for a long time till ... Exactly. Rosie, I'm not pre-screening these questions. Lovely to be here with you and us. Do you recommend focusing on the breath in different parts of the body to drop in deeper into being in the hips? Great question, Rosie. My recommendation would be, rather than focusing the breath in a certain part of the body, just follow the movement. So if we think about this as movement in the context of divine connecting breath, the cue of breath, we can even think of the cue of breath pulling from the breath of the planet, and then the cue of breath moving in, nostrils, crown, lungs. And as we sometimes I don't know where this visual comes from, but almost like a really, really teeny tiny little ping pong ball that's just moving with the breath so I can keep track of where it's going in my body. You'll notice that over time, if you watch that, it'll begin sinking lower and lower. Another thing that's happening is when we're in transmission, which begins when I say the words, let's begin. I mean, it probably begins hours before we formally gather. And I suppose there's an argument to be made. We're all in union consciousness, and therefore there is no beginning or end to a transmission. But anyway, be that as it may, for our sake and for simplicity of language, it begins when I say the words, let's begin. One of the things that's happening when we're in transmission is soul embodiment. It just is one of the things the divine does through me all the time. And that soul embodiment is bringing, and maybe there are different perspectives on this. If you want to substitute the word spirit for soul, lots of different ways. I'm talking about the individuated expression of the one now. As that comes in, it animates everything and enlivens it. And so that can be an experience of maybe some emotion coming up and other things, but eventually that breath will drop all the way into the hips. And Rosie, from my perspective, if you just allow it to get there, it's sort of like if we come back to the river, water will always find its way downhill. It may not go the way we think it's going to. Here's the channel where the water is supposed to go, but it goes over here. The breath can be the same way, so too coming into the hips. But it'll get there eventually. Hope that helps. I find it's more helpful to just be with whatever's coming up than to try to focus in any particular way. If that makes sense. Rebecca is saying, wow, yes, I've had some hangups using God since leaving organized religion several years ago. Finding the work you do a couple of years later has helped me make peace with God, divine energy as well. So thank you. Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for that reflection, Rebecca. Catch your eye, checking in. Wonderful to hear. Always makes me giggle. Here's why, because I'm not good at figuring out what handles mean. And so Catch Your Eye helped me out with that a couple of weeks ago. And then the other thing that makes me giggle about Catch Your Eye is that Catch Your Eye is just down the, let's see, where's Boulder from me is down this way. I'm looking west as I'm looking into the camera. So Boulder is south. I'm up in Fort Collins, Colorado. I think Catch Your Eyes in Boulder. So it always makes me smile. Yeah, however you'd like to continue the conversation on Jerry's question from last week. Oh, and here's Rosie saying, or does embodiment do its own dance downwards? Yes, it does. It absolutely does. Barbara checking in. Wonderful to be with you, Barbara. Thank you so much. And Christine saying, the water image is so helpful for me. Beautiful. Yeah, it's interesting. The water is something that just came. I would love to take credit for this imagery. I'm just noticing my separate self is going, no, don't be that vulnerable. Come on, let's get some credit here. There's no credit here. It's just about the way this imagery shows up intuitively for me. And I would love to take credit for it. It would be wonderful if I were smart enough to have come up with these things. And maybe I am smart enough to have come up with them. But the bottom line is, smart enough or not, they have just presented this way to me. So Divine Connecting Breath actually came in its first iteration back at the beginning of 2009. I was working with a gentleman in one-on-one session who had advanced stage testicular cancer and was really looking for the magic bullet, a magic healing solution, was seeing a number of different practitioners of different sorts. And on this particular day, we sat down together. This is somebody I actually saw in person. Don't see anyone in person anymore. Work virtually with everyone, even people who are here in Colorado that I work with one-on-one, still a virtual connection. I mean, that's probably happening a lot more now with the current pandemic environment. But I've been doing this for a long time this way, and there are reasons for that. Happy to go into it. In any case, most of it is about just being able to be in my own experience. In fact, that's part of the hang up for me for getting on video is I've never had people looking at me in session except when we're on retreat together. And I finally just got over it. Thanks for your help in doing that, John. But the point is, I haven't wanted anyone looking at me because I do all sorts of things when I'm working, when I'm in transmission and session and so on. So anyway, the bottom line is water imagery showed up after divine connecting breath, which showed up in a series of images. And I made a commitment to this gentleman before I knew what was coming out of my mouth. And the commitment was, I'm going to share something with you that you can take with you and use all the time to have a deeper connection with yourself. And this particular individual didn't believe in a divine energy at all. Had a strong connection with nature. From my perspective, it doesn't matter the belief of a particular name or form or any of that is not relevant. It's like saying we have to believe in gravity for gravity to exist. Or for those that enjoy levitation, maybe that's not a good example. We have to believe in the sun for sunlight to exist, maybe is a better way of saying that. So anyway, I'm glad to hear the water imagery is helpful. Yeah, especially in light of COVID-19, collective experience, expression of fear. Yeah, can you say more about that, Catch Your Eye? I'm in a couple of different ideas here and just flowing, and I want to make sure. Oh, you're talking about the virtual experience. Maybe, I don't know. I don't want to presume that, but if you can follow up with that when what you're saying, especially in light of the reason why I work virtually is that in part it's about the visual piece, but also it's not necessary for me. I don't do any hands-on work with anyone. So if somebody were sitting with me in person, and we wouldn't be sitting in this room. This is where I write. There's no seat over there. But if we were sitting over there, there is a seat across from one another. And but I wouldn't come over and put my hands on you. I'd just be sitting, my hands and feet would be buzzing. And it happens just as effectively over the phone or over an internet connection. And it happens through recording, through replays. Those of you who are on live, if you haven't had this experience yet, you could listen or experience the transmission again, and you'll have a different experience. It's just a live experience with the divine. So here's Jerry checking in. Beautiful. Glad to be with you as well. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay, Catch Your Eye is saying, no, in light of Jerry's discussion on the levels of consciousness. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. I see. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's loop this in for everyone. Again, the question that Jerry asked last week was, what stage of consciousness might this teacher be in? And we were exploring that from a couple of different perspectives. Certainly, yes, fear. What we could say is, COVID-19, from my perspective, is amplifying whatever is not yet integrated. And so those things that are in separation, what is being amplified is the polarization. So have you noticed that in your own life, in your own interior experience? Have you noticed it in the collective? Have you noticed it in the political dynamic, in whatever, right? Wherever you want to look, those aspects are sort of reflecting or mirroring back what is not yet integrated. And in the same way, what is integrated is also being amplified. So what is integrated then is being amplified in an experience of deep, deep resonance. And one of the ways, I'm going to have a funny little segue here. I've got my water bottle out, and I'll mute the line so you don't have to hear me drinking this water. I drink a lot of water when I'm in transmission. I'm sure you've heard me say that before. And I'm going to drink some water now because I can feel that coming up for me. And I invite you to do the same. Even if you think we're just hanging out, having a chat, and nothing's going on here, I'm going to suggest to you there's something much deeper happening, some very deep spiritual work, and staying well hydrated, very important. So I'll mute the line. Give me just a moment. I'm going to drink some water, and we'll come back and see where the conversation takes us. I can see a comment coming into the queue here from Eve and possibly some others. Well, when I'm teaching or facilitating on a phone line, I can do that and mute at a opportune moment when no one will know and I won't break the flow. And then if I can't get all the Nalgene in my mouth and I got water on my shirt, no one knows. But now you know. So, hey, I'm a human being just like everyone else. Eve, grateful the divine is not linear. Oh, let's sit with that. That is a beautiful, beautiful statement. Am I unmuted? Yeah. Beautiful statement. Yeah, the divine is not linear. We seek, in separation, we seek to put a construct, an understanding, a structure to spirituality, to whatever. But we're here talking and experiencing the spiritual. So that is a huge insight. And so when we think about these stages of consciousness, they are no more linear than the divine. And in truth, even though we might want to be linear, and maybe some of us are very linear in some ways, in other ways, we're not linear, not just in consciousness, but in other ways as well. This was a huge insight for me, Eve, in the process of witnessing and working with people, especially in individual session, but also in group. I realized a number of years ago that if I tried to understand what was happening or keep track of what God was doing as I was witnessing, everything slowed down. In fact, if I try to communicate about what's happening, if I try to describe to someone, that can even slow it down because it's not linear. Whereas when I'm quiet, it's like watching. I don't even know how to put it. I wouldn't know how to draw a picture. I've got my iPad here. It's ready to go if we need any pictures today. I wouldn't know how to draw a picture of it. It's like, um, you know, trillions of things, and I'm not exaggerating, trillions of things happening concurrently. And how would we even begin to put these things together? How could they possibly connect to one another? And when we let go of that, um, that can be a very powerful point of liberation. Yeah. Here's Catch Your Eye. So death is on everyone's mind. The conversation about death is moving to new unknown levels of consciousness. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose that's true, right? There are multiple ways of talking about this, right? One of the ways could be the death of the physical body, dropping the body, and that journey in consciousness. We could also explore this as the death of the separate self, or some people would refer to the separate self as the ego. I tend to see the ego as both expressed in separation and in wholeness, just my perspective on it. Yeah. Yeah, if you think about it, the discipline, I mean, here's one perspective, right? The discipline of the spiritual journey that we're being constantly invited to over and over again is to become comfortable with the discomfort of stepping into the unknown again and again and again. This is why I like referring to the encounter with the divine as an encounter with the divine mystery. Why I like referring to surrender to God as not to the God that you know, the God you don't know. Because if you surrender to the God you know, or the construct, the divine construct by whatever name that you know, you're surrendering to something you think you're familiar with. And certainly one of the things that's happening is that collectively and individually, we are being moved into a dynamic of that unknown on so many different levels. Well said. Oh, and more coming in from Catch Your Eye. There is an ideal of the divine we feel intuitively as home. We might be overlooking the reality of the experience of releasing form. Yeah. 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 And actually, I want to um, I want to expand on this and talk about the process of coming home as an experience that is available to us in the body, in the same way that we might think of going home relative to dropping um, the body. And there's one more comment coming in here. Back to alchemy, the actual chemistry of, yeah, of I I prefer the word transmutation to transcending, but everyone has their own preferences here. Let's see if I can put my little screen share up and see if this is going to work. If this isn't familiar to you at this point, the stages of consciousness, there are other videos, and on replay I'll link to a video where I describe this in greater depth. So this is God consciousness. This is where we're all born. This is victim. This is control or manifester. This is conduit. These are different stages of consciousness, obviously, and this is union. And notice in this drawing, union is being represented by a house to coming home. Let me just screen share a little bit larger so you can see. And the movement, the direction that we move here is many ways into victim consciousness, and then this beautiful river, which moves through one transition point here, which is about responsibility. And then meanders through controlling consciousness, and then one transition point here, which is surrender. Oops, that's a U. And then again, this beautiful meandering journey, and then many different ways into union consciousness. So the opportunity here is to let me see which view is going to be best. The opportunity here, of course, is to descend into our bodies to embody the soul. Let me see if I can put up another. Thanks for inviting me to rate your app right now. So soul embodiment, which I was talking about earlier, it's this process of descending. This is happening every time we're in transmission together, down into the hips. So we move through here thinking, which corresponds to stage 1, the heart, feeling, which corresponds to stage 2, the hips, being, which corresponds to stage 3. And then we could say stage 4. Stage 3, of course, is conduit. Stage 4 would be this experience of, you could call it an experience of transcendence. I suppose my reference to it would be an embodied experience of the divine within. It's a profound state of integration. And what happens as this process is going on here is that the traumas that are held, they can be held in the body or in the field energetically, are enlivened. And if we allow ourselves to feel them fully as we embody, then they are transmuted. I wonder how I'm going to. The transmutation leaves the negative charges gone, but the lessons are integrated. So now the gift inside, this isn't a very good drawing, but anyway, you could sort of get the idea, I hope. And so if we look at this back here, what we're talking about is this movement. Let me see if I can make the screen a little bit bigger. This movement, victim consciousness is stage 1, control stage 2, conduit 3, union 4. And the confusing thing is that this appears as a linear journey, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is stage 0. So maybe it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But that's not how it works out. How it works out, if we just look at it in its concept at the conceptual level, And maybe if I try to get a different color going here, it's like this. And then let's do something else. Maybe the color will, you're here, and then all of a sudden you're here, and then you're back here, and then you're here, and then you're back here. And so it might look like 0, 1, 2, 3, because there's integration happening this way. And then from here it would be 3, 1, 3, 3, 1, 1, 1, or however. I don't mean to, it's not prescriptive what I'm trying to draw here at all. Yeah, this does have limits to engaging in a conversation. It's nothing to apologize for. I'm grateful for the feedback and also uh, for the exploration that we're sharing together. So thank you so much for engaging in the conversation. I'm going to get some more water here. If there are any other questions or comments coming up, this is a great time to submit them. I haven't seen any comments come in from Twitter. Maybe it just means there's nobody looking at this on Twitter. But if there is somebody on Twitter, be interesting if there are, if you could test that to see if comments are going to post. I'd appreciate the test. I'm going to drink some water here, invite you to do the same, and I'll pick up with any other questions or comments, and then we'll sink in to a deeper experience without all the talking and the conversing and so on. Glad you're here. Thanks for joining this week's virtual community circle. There's a little bit of guided meditation at the beginning with divine connecting breath, the transmission, the conversation, and so on. Always wonderful to be with you. Okay, I'm going to drink some water. I'll be right back. Okay, Gary's got a comment here. That's great. I guess my leg is against the music stand here because I was shaking the camera. I'm testing being on via Facebook. You look and sound great, brother. Thanks, Gary. I appreciate your encouragement. All right. I'm just going to sit for a little bit longer and see my mouth buzzes. It's one way the divine communicates to me when I'm in transmission. My mouth might buzz. Somebody's got something to say, or I need to say something out loud. And maybe what we're all waiting for is what really matters is the deeper experience. Okay. Well, this gives me a good chance to pause too and put on a little commercial for why I'd love for you to subscribe on whatever platform you're on. Subscribing on Facebook would just involve not just liking the video, but also liking my professional page, which here, let's try this out because this is pretty fancy. Check this out. Huh? How's that for exciting? There's my professional page, ken.stone.spiritual.teacher. And if you're on YouTube here, I'd love for you, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the channel. Subscribing and clicking the bell to be notified means that you'll receive actually notification from YouTube anytime I post a new video and anytime I live stream. And of course, follow on Twitter. I can't remember all the other places that we've got this going on. In any case, I'm glad you're here. And if what's happening here, aside from my commercial about why I'd love for you to like the video or subscribe or be more formally involved in the community and so on. If you like what's happening, please do give the video a like. Here's Michelle checking in, stepping in for a minute today. Thank you all for all you do and who you are. Thanks for checking in. Yeah. To catch your eye, I so appreciative of the risk you're taking with no live audience. I do prefer roundtable discussions. Yeah. Yeah. It's a risk. That's right. Someone might not say anything. Yeah, a roundtable discussion is interesting as long as the conversation is interesting. One way to guarantee the conversation's interesting here is to participate in it. Ask a question or make a comment about something that matters to you, and then it's sure to matter to you, right? It's sure to be meaningful. And for me, it's fine if nobody says anything. It's no big deal because we'll just sink in and have the experience we're going to have anyway. So thank you for the feedback. Glad you're all here. Okay, let's sink in, shall we? I don't see any other comments coming in. I will check in before we wrap up just to acknowledge and thank everyone who's commented. Let's take a deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, just let go of everything that has come up through our discussion. Clarity, confusion, boredom, excitement, enthusiasm, sense of resonance, dissonance, whatever it is, just let it all go and let's sink in deeper now. If it's helpful, you can remind yourself the river is flowing, or the longer form, with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything in the cosmos, the divine, the light, the twin frequencies, connected into each of the smallest aspects on every level, known and unknown. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. And I can feel these waves of resonance moving through the group because my hands and feet are buzzing. And if that's happening for you, that's great. And if it's not happening for you, it's great too. Eventually, it's my belief, although there are certainly members of the community who have an experience that doesn't match with this at all. There's an analogous experience, not a bodily based perspective. It's represented by the words the body, but it's not literally in the body. So whether you're having a body represented experience, which I guess we could call an intuitive experience that you might refer to as the body, but not literally a sensation in the body, or a bodily sensation moving through. Eventually, that level of awareness and experience will begin erupting because from my perspective, it is the outward expression of that inward connection and relationship with the divine. It's what shows up at this level of, at least in the first three stages of consciousness, appear as the mirror. In union consciousness, it seems to me that the mirrors actually meld. They stop being mirrors. Everything is one. Forgetting the camera's on. Oh, well. Chapstick. It's important in Colorado. Another deep breath in and hold. Sinking in even deeper now. And if you're new to this and you're wondering, what should I be doing? The answer is just feel whatever's coming up. You don't have to do anything. Just receive the experience of who you really are. And if your mind gets excited, well, that's got to involve doing something. It really doesn't. You can just feel whatever's coming up intellectually, emotionally, physically. You might feel like you're opening into a void. There are lots of different experiences that unfold. And if you want to share about it, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And those of you who are watching the replay, I interact with every single comment that gets posted. It's this connection that we share in this way is really important to me. And it's one of the reasons why I do this live stream each week is that I think it's really um, an essential part of our spiritual journey as human beings to open to an experience of the divine within, not once or twice, regularly. And one of the ways that God expresses through me supports that, not just with individuals, but also with groups. And so I wanted to offer God's expression as me to our community around the world, and to do that in a way that would be as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. And again, if there's any dissonance or thoughts show up that feel a little bit like they're not now, they're about the future or replaying the past, now might be an experience, an emotion that's coming up. A thought might be, what about that? Or I'm afraid of that, or whatever. You can just remind yourself with each breath, the river is flowing. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. If you can feel the feeling without becoming identified with it, without getting into the thoughts of it or the story of the persistence of feelings like that. If there are sensations that you're unfamiliar with coming into the body, it might be a function of sitting in the circle right now. And sometimes those sensations include buzzing or tingling in certain parts of the body, or feeling like warm water or oil is being poured on certain parts of your body. It can show up in lots of different ways. And whatever is coming in for you right now is perfect. Hmm. Sometimes there can be a really deep, resonant experience that unfolds in life. Maybe it's sitting in this circle or a walk in nature, many different, at a concert, listening to music, whatever, with your beloved. And it's a very natural um, response to that to think, oh, I want to recreate that. I want to have that experience again. And on this front, the breath can teach us so much. If you consider when you were born, one of the first acts in your body was to draw in breath, to receive something new, something that had never been drawn in before. And if you think ahead to the end of your life, one of the last acts in the body will be to exhale, to release the breath. And then something happens universally after that last breath, right? Surrender is inevitable. The empowered separate self must cross a bridge at that point, and that bridge is the bridge of surrender. And it's absolute. And we know about this in some ways from people who've had near-death experiences. They have these astonishingly similar experiences. And you can do research and read more about that, or perhaps you've had your own. You know exactly, maybe you know much more about what I'm saying than I do. And the invitation with each breath is to receive and release fully in equal measure at that depth, to receive anew the totality of who you are as you inhale, and to surrender fully as you exhale with each breath. Think of it like an accordion. You draw in, and there's music, and you release, and there's music. And you draw in, and there's music, there's beauty, and you release, and there's beauty. This liberation, this freedom that is available through complete surrender is one of the things that is being accelerated for us right now. Yeah, in this circle, no doubt. A friend of mine named me the Soul Archaeologist a number of years ago. She said, "Tell me about what you do." And I said, "Well, you know." And she said, "Yeah, just say it out loud." And I said, "Well, underneath everything else is the divine." She said, "You're the Soul Archaeologist." I could just as easily be called the Surrender Accelerator. The experience of who you really are draws a sharp contrast to those parts of your life or my life that we think we need to manage and control. And nothing draws a sharper contrast to that at some level than experiencing who you really are without any control. In the same way, what's happening right now in the pandemic is we are being accelerated through our process of integration. So as we're sitting here and breathing, the integration of victim consciousness, the integration of controlling consciousness, and that pathway, that doorway into the unknown, surrender, not to the God we know, to the God we don't know, to the divine mystery. There is the liberation. There is the freedom. No burden to carry any longer. I was working with a longtime client in private session earlier in the week, and she said something about it's up for us to dream into reality what comes next. We just have to get clear about what we want. And I said, I hear what you're saying, and I know this is a very popular idea right now, but I want to suggest something totally contrary to that. And she said, okay. And I said, here it is. We don't have to dream up our reality. That's from control. We are being invited to surrender to the reality of God's undistorted expression through everyone and everything right now. We don't have to dream that into reality. We don't have to get clear about anything except to let go of control. And what happens then, individually and collectively, is something we can't even imagine. And that's the point. The divine expression through you, in you, and as you is something you can't conceive of. So, when you let go of attempts to exert control to bring that into reality, then the divine gets to flow through you and as you and in you because the river is already flowing. And when you give up control, it expresses divine presence, expresses more completely again and again and again. And so, with each breath, we have that beautiful circle opening up to receive anew the totality of who you really are, to experience it for the first time once again. And then, just as quickly as we receive it, to release it fully, to once again clear the slate, make the canvas blank, that the divine may flood in fully and animate and express more completely through you and in you and as you on every level of your being. Breathing in more fully, receiving and allowing the expression of the divine mystery. Breathing out, surrendering, letting go of control, releasing all attachment, no matter how glorious it may be or have been. The ancient Greek philosopher said, "You cannot step in the same river twice." We can't do it collectively. You can't do it individually. I can't do it individually. But we can step into the divine mystery more and more fully. And the breath can guide us there. Mhm. as you descend to this interior space within you, you might have an experience of emotion that normally you don't give yourself space to feel. It could be joy, it could be laughter, it could be grief, it could be tears, it could be just an emptiness, a lack of any emotion. Great comments and questions coming in. We'll have some time before we wrap up for those. Just want to stay here a little bit longer. Oh, yeah, interesting. Just seeing some things intuitively that are part of the unspoken conversation that's going on. Hmm. This buzzing mouth keeps coming up, so I want to honor it. A couple of things for us here. A few more comments I'll explore with you before we wrap up, and some questions. Before I do that, though, I'd like to formally wrap up the transmission by inviting you to put the universal plug in, and I'll do the same, and I'll bring this transmission to a close. We can do that in a very slow, in a low-key, gentle way that ensures a transition from the interior experience of the divine within and then sustains in that way. That is to say, you're not having an experience of me, you're having an experience, me, Ken, you're having an experience of the divine within you. That is what God enlivens, I believe, through me in those that I'm blessed to sit in circle with. And sometimes that can be a little bit confusing on a number of different levels, and we can explore that. It's a beautiful experience, and just important to remember it's um, an honoring of a deep spiritual space, not a deep personal space, if that makes sense. Your personal experience of that is a deep personal experience, but our experience together, you and I and the rest of the group, that is a spiritual or an energetic exploration. Plug all the way in, transmission to a close. I want to answer a few questions before we wrap up for this week. And I also want to make an invitation. If this experience is resonating with you and you'd like to move in deeper, to explore this at a deeper level, I want to share with you a link to join me and a really extraordinary group of people from around the world in a deep dive workshop. We're doing another workshop tomorrow. It's a virtual workshop. It takes place over the internet. It's a video feed. It's about 3 hours. We start at noon Eastern tomorrow, the 23rd of, what month is it? April 2020. And then another bonus session this coming up Saturday for people who are monthly members of the Deep Dive Workshop series. So I just want to invite you, if that resonates, that's a great way to move deeper with this work. A few questions coming up. Let's see. Yeah, there's a comment here. Catch your eye. Keep up the good work. We need more advertising. Yeah. If this resonates with you and you'd like to share it with your friends, your loved ones, your community, I'd love to invite whomever you think would benefit from this experience to join us each week, each Wednesday at 5 Eastern for the community circle. So would love your help in spreading the word. Thank you. Jerry has a question. Jerry, always full of good questions. Let's see if I can get these up here. I guess I'll see if I can put them up. Ken, I'd like to explore the affirmation process. I would like your comments on this one. I am true to my desire. I have perceived my good in spirit. I now bring into manifestation my perfect desire. What level of affirmation do you believe this is? From stage 1 to 4. It is taken from the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East. And Jerry's last comment is, there are a lot of I's in the process, so just wanted to see if it is too individuated or if it is a union one. This book has many of the teachings of the Ascended Masters. This is an interesting question, Jerry, because it brings to mind for me something that came up last week for me as well over the last in the meantime. So to my perception, this feels like a controlling consciousness expression. But there's a really interesting thing that I get hung up on that other teachers don't and other people don't. I have a hard time with demonstrations of spiritual efficacy. And I am very clear that that is my issue. So the best way that I can address this is to make reference to Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi, where he talks about this. And he's talking about living masters in his lineage who he saw engage in demonstration. And I get hung up on that. And I know it's me. So that having been said, one of the ways that we can tell if something is being shared in union consciousness is if it resonates on every level of consciousness at the same time. And so my question for you, Jerry, is, does this affirmation, I am true to my desire, I have perceived my good in spirit, I now bring into manifestation my perfect desire, does that resonate in victim consciousness? See for yourself. I'm curious to know what's true for you. Does it resonate in manifestor consciousness? Definitely seems to there. Does it resonate in conduit? In conduit, I am God's servant. So that's interesting. And in union, if I was in union, do I have to bring something into manifestation? I don't know. See what comes up for you, Jerry. Catch your eye. Reflecting on an underground movement in Boulder. John asks, curious why you chose the 2-4-8 rhythm. There are entire books written on the effects of different breathing techniques and rhythms. John, I know there are, and I will have to say that what I'm sharing is not, let me say this differently, because I am making a conscious choice as to how I share this. I am being shown what to say or share, or it's being spoken through me some of the time. But things like that breathing rhythm sort of showed up organically, and then I realized that it was a 2-4-8. But I mean, I know there are benefits on the level of physiology to a 2-4-8 breath, but I'm by no means an expert in that. In fact, I'm not an expert in various breathing techniques or any of that. So I wouldn't say it's so much a conscious choice as a reflection of what is wanting to be expressed to the best of my ability to share. John Paduchek. Yeah, there's a conversation going on that's difficult for me to keep track of. I just want to make this comment. There are comments about romantic love and this type of thing. So, I mean, as it turns out, I'm in a beautiful romantic relationship with my sweetheart Amy, And oftentimes when people are sitting with me, I've been much more aware of this in the past. It's not something I'm particularly aware of anymore, but it makes sense that if it might be coming up. There is an enlivening when we embody down into the hips, but I want to be clear that enlivenment is not between me personally and you or anyone in the circle. It's not me. It's not me doing anything, and it doesn't really have anything to do with me on that level. It is the divine expressing through me, and the encounter there is with divine love. It's not a humanistic individual expression of my Ken's love for anyone, certainly not romantically. And I don't even, I feel a deep divine love for all people, and I'm working on integrating that on many different levels, but I don't even think that's being expressed when we're sitting together in circle. So I'm happy to explore this more if there's a conversation that um, wants or needs to be had. I think it's probably a topic it's best to be addressed more on the front end of a circle than on the back end of a circle. But um, there's lots there. Yes, John is saying I prefer organic rather than chosen by intellect. Me too, brother. Here's the thing. I I don't want to say I never choose things by intellect, John. I think that would just be completely inauthentic of me. Here's what I can say. Every time I have chosen something, God, I'm going to sit here and cry. Oh my goodness. Every time I choose something consciously, it leads me into separation. If I do something and I think it through, if I think, oh, I need to do it this way or it needs to happen this way, it just completely locks up the expression of divinity through me and the group and on and on and on. And so, to the best of my ability, I am just um, wanting to and working to honor that raw organic expression all the time. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, not by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying that that is my goal. And I recognize after, sitting and exploring, sitting with this gift and exploring it on many different levels with many, many different people from different cultures, beliefs, and all over the world and so on now for more than 12 years, that the best plan of action for me is no plan and just to be organically with what is unfolding. That's uh okay, catch your eyes saying, oh geez, not my intention to imply here. It's all good. I Here's the thing you need to understand about me. I can't, it's very difficult for me anyway, but especially in circle, especially in writing. Isn't this interesting? I don't have this going on when there's an audio connection, but it's very difficult for me to interpret in writing what is being communicated on a deeper level. And so forgive me for taking the conversation in a way that you didn't intend it, or don't forgive me. It's a good clarification. Someone needed it and apparently not you. So I'm glad that we explored that together. It's no big deal. Thank you for bringing the topic up and giving me an opportunity to talk about it. And also thank you for your grace. Support you 100% with love. Yeah, or 1,000% with love. It's all good. I feel that, and I'm grateful for it as well. Thank you. Let's just sit together for a few more minutes, shall we? I see the alluvial fan. I don't know why that word, that name comes to mind from somewhere in my educational background. Perhaps when I was in middle school in Boulder, it was junior high then. Southern Hills Junior High School. Um, The alluvial fan is at the end of a river when it flows out to sea. Everything spreads out. So here we are in the alluvial fan of this deep embodied resonance, sinking out into the union of divine presence in whatever way we're experiencing that, at the level of the body, at the level of the mind, the level of the heart. And as much as possible, to the degree that it's comfortable for you, I just invite you to sink into the being part of that experience without trying to rush to engage with your mind or your heart and your feelings, just in the being space. This being space is always here, no matter what's going on in your life. Always. And it's such an extraordinary resource. I couldn't begin to describe the depth of this resource or the meaning of it. Wouldn't even want to try. It's different for each of us. The key from my perspective is that it is a resource. It is an important aspect of who you really are. Not the total picture, just an aspect of it. And over the next week, if you have an opportunity to become aware or to open to this being, feeling experience within you, I wonder how that will shift things for you. I wonder what is available here for you, for whatever's going on in your life. And if you journal, you might write about it. You're certainly welcome to respond to my From My Heart email, or if you subscribe to the newsletter and the welcome, you can just reply to that and let me know what's on your mind, or in the comments below the video on whatever platform. I'd love to hear from you. But even more than hearing from you is the being experience, this opening to who you really are. It's within you. It doesn't even need to be spoken of. I'm not trying to limit you. I don't want to limit your engagement here or with the community or anything like that. I'm just recognizing how sacred this space is within you and how beautiful it is just for you to have that experience. And I invite you to explore it and be with it and see what unfolds as you step further into the embodied mystery within. I want to remind you, if it resonates, we're gathering tomorrow for a deep dive workshop. Would love to have you join us if that sounds interesting, something you'd like to explore. I put a link in the description or in the comments, and I'll put a link in the description as well when the replay goes up. And you can also go to deepdiveworkshop.com. If you haven't already and you'd like to, I'd love for you to subscribe on whatever platform. And on YouTube, when you click the bell, you're also notified. That'd be great. Would love to hear your further comments. your reflections in the comments below, either during the live event here and also on replay. I so look forward to interacting and learning and connecting in that way as well. Until we're together again tomorrow in the deep dive and next week in another virtual community circle. Peace.